Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to this fantastic session that we've got with the wonderful Nick Elston. For those of you that may have joined us earlier on this year, Nick joined us for a session online, and it was a really well attended session. Fantastic feedback from everybody. And there were a couple of surprises at the end of the session as well, which really have spiked an interest with some of our members and been very memorable. And we're going to come on to those a little bit later on. Now, as many of you are aware, we are a community organisation and we support the personal and executive assistants from not only here in the West Midlands, but across the nation. And we have many members that completed our annual survey that were interested to find out more about what we can do as a community to give back and support the health and wellness of PAs and EAs, executive and business support professionals across our region and beyond. So we have striked up a 2022 partnership with the wonderful Nick Elston, and we wanted to do this recording today just to give you a little bit of an insight into his world and how he is really going to be able to support us going forward. So Nick, it is wonderful to welcome you. How are you doing?
Hello, Dan. What a build-up. I'm going to take you with me everywhere I go now. I like that. Thank you. It's really exciting to be working with you guys and going to be meeting everybody in the new year. Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Well, I thought to myself, what we tend to do is, we'll run a webinar sometimes and we'll log on. We've got 45 minutes. We need to cram so much into that. But I thought to myself, let's try and get to know the man behind the magic, basically. So for me, I always believe that people are drawn to people buy into people, and whether that be they have a personal connection with that person, there's something that happened in their life or something that personally you can relate to somebody with, and I just think you are just one of those people, 100%. So tell us a little bit about you. So whereabouts are you from in the UK, Nick?
I live just above Bristol in a little town called Yate, or Yate, if I'm being posh, but it's Yate. Yeah, a little bit south from you. But yeah, that's where I'm from. How I got here, the kind of the potted version, and you'll be hearing kind of more snippets about that as we go through next year, was that I experienced mental illness in my childhood, namely obsessive compulsive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, through to my education, then into my corporate career, continually running at a high state of burnout, a breakdown in 2012. And really that's where speaking came into my world, that standing up and telling my story and how I felt about things, that from somebody that was crippled by anxiety before, in speaking in any environment, which is why I get exactly where people come on this. And that's where it started for me, being able to kind of tell my story. And then fast forward to today, it's kind of what I do. So there's two caps, like literally. The first cap is as a professional speaker. So I'm an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health. So I work in the mental health space as a non-solution focused person. And what I mean by that is, and we all know this really, mental health could be heavy and dry and kind of quite repetitive, and or even on the other side, quite fluffy. What I deliver is very different to any other mental health or wellbeing initiative you will have ever attended before, I promise you that. And that's exactly why I'm excited to come along and do this for you next year. And that's kind of my angle, is to drive engagement to the solutions, but to give people the reality. As you said, people connect with people, culture is king, and actually that's what it's about, giving you the reality of not just mental illness, but day-to-day life, and sharing different areas of our personal lives, professional lives. And I've been described as a big man, big heart, quite literally on that one, big story and brutal honesty. And that's kind of where I come from. Then with my other cap on, which we'll be going into, especially for the live event next year, is a transformational speaking coach. So helping people to tell their stories, even when it comes to business environments. How can we inject emotion into our stories to build a depth of relationship which is faster, stronger, and greater than any superficial message you can ever deliver? That's a snapshot version, Dan. That's as good as it and quick as it gets. Okay.
No, I love that. No, thank you. I think, historically for us, there are, when we look at our feedback every year, the same things come up every year, and it's something that I'm really passionate to try and help and support our members with, and that is the confidence to go out there networking. I think we've all the screen actually for our community has been a bit of a lifesaver, because it just has that barrier, that comfort barrier between you, rather than walking into a room full of people and trying to speak to the person that's at the coffee machine or might be looking at their phone and all that. And so, confidence building can start from there. For example, just having a conversation with somebody at an event and telling your story, that person's story. When in some of the training I've done before, you don't walk into the room and just tell people what you do, you tell them about you. And I think that's what's really important. That's what gauges people's interest. But then we have other people that they want to have a space within the board meeting where they feel like, can I speak in this meeting? Is my voice, equal to those people that are in that meeting? And I think it's having the confidence to be able to project yourself in that way and build relationships with people outside the business, internally, with all different departments. So it's confidence building. It's just massive, isn't it, Nick?
It really is. It's not about anxiety management per se. I would say it's harnessing anxiety. Actually, that's what I do, is to acknowledge the anxiety and harness it to perform. So I'll be showing you that. But also, it is about boosting confidence. And also, we need to come away from this perception of speaking as a term. And I think that, firstly, it's quite an ego-driven thing to say that you're a speaker or something. But speaking is speaking to one person. Speaking is me to you, you to me. So actually, your ability to be able to deliver any message with clarity and power and emotion will have an ultimately defining impact on your success by your own definition. When I kind of do post-event interviews with my academy days, then very often, at least 2 people out of 20, so 10% of the room is there because they don't feel they're being heard at home. So actually, speaking takes on a whole new dynamic. It's the ability to be heard and deliver any message to anybody, whether your audience is 1 person or 1 million people on TikTok and everywhere in between. So, but it's also important to recognize the elephant in the room, that actually public speaking, according to Harvard, is a greater fear than death. We fear ridicule more than we do dying. So it's no wonder why we feel crippled with anxiety when we go to networking events or boardroom meetings or conversations with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to kind of relate to that again is that, people automatically sometimes assume that I'm, filled with confidence and that I can just stand up and speak in front of anybody. But our awards committee, who are probably watching this, know that when we did our awards this year, I've not stood up in front of anybody for 2 or 3 years now. And my knees buckled. I was shaking like a leaf, and my anxiety levels just rocketed through the roof. And it's something that it scared me, and I thought, how am I going to stand up and I've got my speech written out here. I can't hold my notes because I'm shaking. All that kind of stuff, all these feelings that it just really made me feel like, am I going to even enjoy this night, And it's not about me. It was about celebrating, our profession. But things like that, anxiety is something that I think has built up a lot of time over, particularly with COVID. I think we're all kind of feeling that more anxiety than we probably ever felt before.
I think so. When 6 weeks ago, when we were first kind of back in person again, my first event was in Glasgow. Now, the protection was in place there. You still had to wear a mask and lots of different things. So it actually was like a safer way in. But the first time I stood up in front of a group of people again, that I felt exactly like you just said then. Yeah. What I did was to implement the tools I'll be coaching you guys next year on, the kind of not just the stage stuff, but also how can we start to bring ourselves together in any given moment. And there's certainly things you can do. But the first one is to actually embrace that anxiety. Like you said, you did it anyway. It's just a case of reining in that kind of the fear, that false evidence appearing real, isn't it? We're projecting a negative outcome. The thing is, the same with me, I guess, that we're both considered showmen because we're out in front of people. We never truly see the reality of the showman. and I know with your passion for kind of dancing and stuff, is the same. I think that scares the hell out of me, thinking about dancing or singing in front of people, kind of thing. So so actually I get that, but I think that my first talk actually just after my breakdown was called A Showman's Life, because it was after one of my favorite songs by a guy called George Strait, where when he performs, as we do in business and in life, that there's an expectation from your audience to be a certain way, or to have a certain confidence. So therefore, that's what we do, but we don't really know what's going on behind. And that's kind of, I think, my place in the world, is to show people what's going on behind that. And networking, like I said, was bread and butter for me. But it was such an ordeal as somebody with a lot of anxiety going to networking events, that I walked in like Hagrid's bigger brother. Expecting that I'm going to have like all the confidence in the world, and actually I masked that confidence, and again that contributed to my eventual breakdown. So I'm very open about these things, because I think we have all the answers we'll ever need. We just need to ask ourselves the right questions and then move the hell out of our own way. So for everybody that comes along to all the sessions, I like to build like a cohort, like a group of us next year, that you will get everything that I've got, and all the mistakes I've made as well. You're not just going to get the glossy stuff.
No, I think that's great, Nick. I think just relating to that point is that, PAs sometimes, they can be, of all levels, all throughout business. They might just be coming into the profession and needing to build their network within their organization and build their confidence as they go along. But you also have the PAs that are at the top of the game, supporting, the most senior people in business. And I think in terms of perception, people just perceive, oh, that's a person within that position, they come across in that particular way, or they should be feeling in that particular way, or I might not be able to talk to that person or be completely open and honest with that person because of who they might be supporting. So I know we were introduced by the wonderful Paula Harding.
Yes.
I know, she's awesome. And I just, for PAs, I think, in their position of where they are within business, do you think this the coaching that we kind of, and the cohorts that we're going to be doing together, will be really helpful for those?
Oh yes. And you touched on something really interesting there, that it's very often it's our expectation of other people and how they're going to be and how they're going to react. That's the problem, really. Really randomly, I was speaking at an event last week, and in walked Judge Rinder, just randomly and I was. This is kind of, I don't have that preconception of kind of how people are going to be, or whether he's going to be talk to me or not. So I just went, "Morning, mate. You all right?" And he went, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks you." So if we treat people like humans, we get a human reaction. But back to your question, that kind of, I think as a PA or a VA or an EA, whatever you are, I think that there's certain things. So you've got a fast pace. So therefore, it's about boundaries and expectations. We'll certainly be looking at that. I think it's about working out the flexibility of your role, which can often have more flexibility than most, but also recognizing that you're not just an assistant in that sense of the word. You are an advisor, because I guarantee you, as an exceptional EA, VA, PA, you will have the same level of trust and rapport with your client, or with the person you're working with or for, than they would have with a counsellor or a GP. So therefore, you will have big conversations with them about their deepest, darkest stuff, because they trust you. Where do you go with that? And especially if you're kind of freelance and you're working for lots of different people, you've got lots of different burdens to carry with you before you even go home. So it's not just about self-protection, that's a big thing, but it's also about how we can support other people whilst protecting ourselves. I think that's a huge area for your sector of the world.
Yeah, 100%. We at our annual conference this year, we had a really, and it comes on to kind of some of the sessions that you're doing with this. I think one of the words that you use, which I think is so important, is vulnerability. And Katie, who's on our learning and development committee, she talked about how she was supporting her executive, and actually how taking on the load of their mental kind of the way that they were mentally at that time, which wasn't a great place, was actually really impacting her, and she didn't realize what she could do to really help her own mental health, let alone her executive. And I think we also have the world of mental health first aiders, where businesses will go, right, we need this many mental health first aiders. Well, that's great, but actually, who's supporting the mental health first aiders? And
Companies found that for a pandemic, did they? They're not suddenly they're a fourth emergency service, and this wasn't designed for that.
Exactly. So I think again, coming on to the sessions now, I know we've got 6 virtual sessions with you next year.
We have.
We also have a 1-day academy, which is amazing, which is going to be taking place in the West Midlands, venue to be confirmed at the moment, but we've got all the dates that we're going to be uploading into our portal very, very soon. So Nick, can you kind of just give us a little bit of an outline of those sessions that we're going to be doing virtually, if that's okay?
Sure, just a real kind of high level overview. So
Yeah.
You mentioned the first one is starting big. I was like, go big or go home. I'm going to start big. Vulnerability to bulletproof. So basically, it's that kind of journey that I've been on, that actually from that point of adversity, without that adversity, my most exciting things would be happening now. And using vulnerability in its truest sense. So vulnerability isn't necessarily doing this and sharing what I share. It could be showing compassion. Vulnerability could be showing just a little bit more of yourself to get that depth of relationship. So we'll certainly go through how to use vulnerability safely, so that you protect your own emotional well-being as well, but how big an impact it has when you start to kind of connect with people around you. The second session is around emotional storytelling. So this is one of the main drivers of how I help people to tell their stories, to transform that position from being owned by their story to their story owning them, and vice versa. There's a fine line, but a huge world of difference. So how do we sound when we deliver emotion? This is, especially on a live event, this is going to be a fun one, because I get people to do like 1-minute rants on stuff that makes them angry. So it's really, really cool. So emotional storytelling is basically how we can amplify our messages. Session 3 is you are a battery. Now, stay with me. That sounds weird, admittedly, but I'm not the guy to talk about nutrition. There's lots of guys who talk about nutrition or exercise. I'm 6'4", 20 odd stone guys. You'll find out next year. I'm not a fitness guru. There are people that do that. But for me, keep it simple. So I'll tell you how I relate that to our energy, to being a battery. You 10 out of 10 fully charged, you 1 out of 10 running on fumes, and actually how that relates to how we can go forward into each and every day, accepting that going to be days where you wake up feeling, ugh. And I do too. This is not how to go, this guy's cured. I manage my stuff, I nearly swore that. I manage my stuff daily to varying degrees of success. So I'll be sharing how that can look for you too. Session 4, the power is in the comeback. I've got to say this, it's so true, that very often, if we look at our personal and professional lives, we'll design a future based on fear. We'll design a future based on our perceived failures of the past. Now, a very brief example, and I'm going to go into this on the session, of course, but if you are not good with using telephones, or you've had a bad experience of phoning people, but actually telesales is part of your work, you can actually like completely ring fence that and think, right, I'm not doing that at all, which could damage your success ongoing. So we cut that off. And that sounds quite simple in that example, but if we're doing that with relationships, or if we're doing that with certain clients, and that really does damage us in that sense. So the power is always in the comeback, means that no matter where you are right now, it's that acceptance of where you are and how we could then forge a path going forward, how we can use that energy and that would have destroyed us with any given adversity, harness that as a catalyst to go forward. Powerful session, that one. Session 5, anxiety and resilience 101. So this is basically the lived experience guidebook to managing anxiety, and also what not to do as well, because I'll go into that as well. So not just about managing anxiety, but harnessing anxiety and building resilience, because I guarantee the biggest anxiety trigger, no matter what client I'm working with at the time, clients like Harvey Nicks or KFC or all these big organizations, the biggest anxiety trigger is always change, always. But change is inevitable. So it's how do we get good with change? And that's where the resilience piece comes in. And the final kind of session is session 6, which is an open session. Basically, that's an audience with. We'll go through anything you want to know, Ask me anything. You know me, absolutely no filters. I will tell you anything that I can. If I don't know it, I'll tell you I don't know it, and I'll put you in touch with somebody who does. But of course, just before session 6, we've got the big live event as well. And I will be doing an in-person, full-day speaking academy course. And that's going to be amazing. That is truly transformational. It's when I run these publicly every month, it's the highlight of my month. That's how, I mean, all the amazing stuff I'm into, that is always the highlight of my month. So yeah, that's the overview. Yeah. And I'm not going to give away any more. You got to sign up for the rest.
Oh, I love it. No, thank you so much, Nick. I think it's awesome. Like I say, for us, it's a completely, it's like we completely shift into a different approach with our health and wellness program for next year, and I think hopefully it's going to be really welcomed by everybody, because like I say, how could they not come and want to spend some time with you? So it's brilliant. But
and also I may have a couple of special guests appearing and popping in along the way as well. So that's been known before, that people that I think would be really, really good for that session, I'll just bring them in for a little kind of 5-minute chat with people as well. Certain celebrities I work with as well, they've popped in. So yeah, stay tuned. You never know who's going to pop onto the call as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Nick. And just to, to kind of wrap up today, tell us about some of the things that you've been doing at the moment, because I know that you were in this virtual space, and then when we were trying to meet up, it was like, you were out that day and you were here and you were there. So tell, like, what sort of things have you been up to recently?
So, I mean, I was going to say I've been very fortunate, but I think his application, I think over the past 20 months, that it's just continued to be successful by my own definition of success, by the way, very subjective term. But over the past, just even in the past 6 weeks, I've onboarded Tesco as a group, as a new client, O2 as a new client, and Virgin Media O2 as they are now. And also the Ministry of Justice with taking the speaking academies into prisons and reform to actually use as a reform tool. So much going on, and I've chosen this time to do a rebrand of the business and to do everything. There's so much going on, but actually I'm looking forward to the Christmas break to recharge the batteries, to take my own advice, as you'll find out next year. But there's so many good things going on. And I think that's the thing that we all need to hold on to, really, for every kind of big challenge we experience. And as we record this today, it's the second day of kind of that work from home instruction again, or the kind of guidance and stuff. We need to get good with change. And I think that's kind of where we all are right now. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with me.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you. And I think just to kind of, we are going through this massive period. Well, we've been going through a huge period of change for 2 years, and I think as a society, we are becoming a lot more adaptable to change very quickly. But that's not to say that it doesn't absolutely petrify us at all, and I think now more than ever, we're always here to support as many people as we possibly can. I think, like I say, the work that you do, Nick, is just awesome. And I've spoken to so many people who literally sing your praises. I'm just so glad that we've managed to get this time to spend together today. And I really hope that you have a fantastic break and you get those batteries recharged, because we need you for 2022, Nick.
You'll get me both barrels. You'll be all good. Don't worry about that. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nick. It's fantastic to spend some time with you, and we'll catch up with you next year.
Cheers, Dan. Yeah, see you all next year. See you on the other side.
Thanks.